Mozambique is a nation on the southern coast of Africa. Before the Cold War, it was a colony of Portugal. The nation's history of Portuguese control began in the 1500s with Portuguese explorers like Vasco da Gama. With this new control came the slave trade and racist values. In the 1920s, Portugal turned into a military dictatorship by a fascist coup. This transition of government caused a tighter grip on the African population and the use of forced labor. Portugal began a more direct control over Mozambique. The economic state consisted of an exploitative settler economy. African natives had the choice of being forced into hard labor or being forced to assimilate to the Portuguese culture. Those who assimilated were granted a weak, basic education. Most natives chose to participate in forced labor, which consisted of working on land run by Portuguese. Some peasants produced cash crops to be sold in the Portuguese markets. A growing population of Portuguese in Mozambique led to great social problems and a racist system similar to the apartheid. The USSR had inspired communist movements in North Africa starting in the 1920s. However, it wasn't until they were under the rule of Nikita Khrushchev that the USSR began searching for ways to become a superpower throughout all of Africa through communism. The USSR found that they could maintain power in Africa through the shifting political structures by maintaining an economic and political sphere of influence. In 1964, Mozambique citizens planned an uprising against the Portuguese due to their previously corrupt colonial residency. It was the USSR that then decided to provide arms to this movement. They hoped that they would be able to continue to collect on African resources despite the constant power struggles and military coups. Soviet expansion in Africa had various goals, including undermining Western influence, expanding Soviet presence, promoting Soviet military interests, and gaining political support. In 1974, the USSR signed a treaty of friendship and cooperation with Mozambique. This is one of the many strategies they used in order to implement themselves in southern Africa. After this, they began sending East Germans to various countries, including Mozambique, to hold security, organizational, and propaganda training jobs. In doing this, the USSR solidified a strong presence inside Mozambique. The main effect of the Cold War on Mozambique was their independence from Portugal. Directly after gaining their independence, many white civilians left as the country came in support for the apartheid struggles. The political state started as an unstable, single-party state with socialist, Marxist-Leninist policies. The nation has also been in constant conflict since gaining their independence. Mozambique owes billions US dollars in debt, making it one of the most aid-dependent nations in the world. Currently, the nation has regressed a lot in their 40 years of independence. The Mozambique government created a constitution and have multi-party elections. Very few of the effects from gaining their independence are still present because the country has been in constant change. Luckily, the World Bank canceled most of Mozambique's debt, but the nation is still in great poverty. Even though Mozambique has stayed in constant struggle, the nation gained the right of self-determination.